Hey guys, Darren Starr with you, 5-Star Physique once again. So, I want to continue doing these nutrition videos, show you some recipes, show you some macro ideas. The problem is, as of today, when I'm recording this, it'll get posted a little bit later, but right now, I'm currently 5 days out on my photo shoot. So my macro options are a little limited, and my ability to experiment and try some new stuff and show you guys some stuff is a little bit limited. So we'll have some new stuff coming up once this shoot is done, but for right now, I was really scratching my head like, what do we do? So I'm going to show you how I handle my veggie prep, because I do like to add a lot of fresh veggies to each meal throughout the day. This is the one thing where I actually spend some time in the kitchen. I don't spend a lot of time doing meal prep traditionally. I'll cook up protein sources, but other than that, I like to spend as little time in the kitchen as possible. This is something where I feel like I get a lot of bang for the buck out of it, so I wanted to show you guys what I do. What I'm using here is celery, a white onion, and then 3 bell peppers. And the idea is I chop all this stuff up really finely, throw it in a giant bowl, mix it all up evenly, and then put it in a container that I can shove in the fridge. So I've got the system down pretty well. This is the container that I put everything in, and this will also be my my little impromptu garbage can throughout for all the refuse that I get from this. So I just wanted to show you how I do this, because I try to make this, I know it's chopping vegetables, Darren, how freaking hard is it? But still, there are ways to do it a little bit more efficiently. You will see my knife skills in the kitchen are embarrassingly bad. So the whole point of this is, if I can do it, you can do it too. So, and I use a little tool here that I'll show you guys how that works. The other thing that I would say is, make sure you use a sharp knife. There's an old adage that there is nothing more dangerous in the kitchen than a dull knife, because it forces you to push harder. It's more difficult to control, so just use a sharp knife and be careful. So that being said, let's just tackle this one at a time, and I'll show you how I do this. So the celery has been rinsed already, and all I'm doing is cutting off the ends here, because I don't like this bit. This is actually my wife's favorite bit of the celery stalk, but I think she's crazy. So just cutting off the ends here, and just the top end. The bottom end we won't end up using, but we don't need to chop that off preemptively. And then so we've got all these stalks here, and then what we'll do is throw them in this bowl here, but we're gonna pass them through the mandolin first of all. So this is a cool little tool. If you don't have one of these, you can pick one up on Amazon. You can get a nice one, spend a little bit of money on it. This is a cheapo piece of crap, but it does the job just fine. So the idea is, you've got this little handle here that adjusts the distance between the surface here and the blade, so you can adjust the thickness of what you want to pass through this thing, and then you just rapid fire move this stuff through it. You got to be careful with your fingers, of course. There you go, just like that. That's one stalk down. So, and you can typically pass through, if you hold these things about 2 at a time, you get a couple that are similar length, you can pass through 2 at a time. This blade is getting a little dull, so there's going to be a little bit of fibrous stuff that hangs on if I do this, but nonetheless, I can kind of double up my efforts and increase my speed a little bit. Like I said, all about efficiency, and so this will make short work of this stuff. So that's the celery. Okay, so the celery is done. That's what we're left with. The next we'll move on to the onion here. There are a lot of ways to cut an onion. Now, I buy these from the store already peeled, because for me, peeling it is what takes the most time, and it's the most cumbersome thing. So what I do is I chop off the root end right here, and then the opposite end, getting as much weight or as little waste as possible. I want as much of this onion left over as I can, so I don't chop off a whole lot. And then I sit it on one of those flat ends that I just cut. I just run my knife right through the middle of it. And then from there, it's a pretty simple exercise of just cutting some relatively thin slices here. I'm pushing against the end of the onion from over here just to keep everything nice and compact. And then once I pass my knife through, I hold my index finger right here where the part I just sliced is, so then I can apply some pressure, pull my knife out, and I don't have a big mess here, because I want to keep this thing together for the time being until I get through the whole thing. I'm just trying to get slices here that are about 1/4 of an inch thick-ish, something like that. And then we're going to turn it, and then we're just going to chop just like that. And it does get a little dicey here towards the end. You've got to watch your fingers, and then usually I turn it on end after a couple more chops here, like that. And ta-da. So it might seem like, well, it didn't really do a great job of chopping that very finely, but it will turn out fine in the end. So you can see, you know, these individual pieces, all the layers here, they come apart pretty small. So that's one half of it, and then we just throw that into the bowl with the celery, and then we'll repeat that with the other half. Okay, so onion and celery are done. They're in here. So now we do the bell peppers. These are the most time consuming because there's 3 of them and they've got to be, you know, precisely cut a little bit. You got to be careful with. There's a lot of seeds in there that I don't want. You can eat them, but I don't particularly care for them. I do, however, I find it to be worth the time spent to do this just because I really like the variety in color and flavor and texture, and plus the varied micronutrients and phytonutrients you get from these. I find it's worth the time. So the best way to cut up a bell pepper is to take and chop off about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of the top with the stem. You'll see that. You can see what's inside there. You'll see all the seeds in there. Then you turn it around and you do the same with the bottom. And then this will just stand up flat like that. And then typically what I will do is the bottom, this is perfectly usable here. So I will cut this up into relatively small strips and then go the other direction with it as well. See a couple spots that I missed there. Then we'll just shove that into the bowl. Get it. Basically, what I want to do here is just keep this stuff out of the way. So, and I'm always looking for seeds that fall out, and if I see some of those, like they'll stick on the knife, I'll get rid of them. So what we're going to do now is just, you know, chop this. Try and chop it into about 4 pieces. We're trying to get the outsides of it and leave the core in the center. So I'm going to chop like right here, right here, right here. You can see how that goes, and I kind of angle it towards the middle because typically the core is a little cone shaped, so you can come in at an angle like this, and you get more of the actual outside part, which we want. So there's cut 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this we just throw away, we discard that. So now we're left with these 4 pieces here. We got a few seeds, clean those up. And then for these 4 pieces here, we'll take this and I'm just going to cut it into strips, you know, again, about 1/4 inch or so thick. So each one of these is going to yield about, you know, 4, 5, 6 slices. And then we do the same thing that we do at the bottom. We slice them lengthwise and then we turn them the other direction and chop like so. So like I said, this is the most time consuming part just because you've got a lot of individual segments of it to deal with. But again, I find it to be worth it. If you're not a big fan of peppers and you want to do this with something else, great. Peppers are probably one of the more convoluted things to chop as far as vegetables go, but that's the process here. So I'm going to do that for these remaining pieces here and then the other 2. Okay, so all the peppers are chopped. Here's our finished product, and then we just mix this all thoroughly with the hands and we are good to go. This is really, it's something that I like doing, especially when I'm in a caloric deficit and I'm starving and the meals get a little bit more bland. It's a really good way to add some texture into it, a little bit of additional flavor without adding any kind of a caloric impact. So again, like I said, it is a little time consuming, but it's worth it for me, I think. And you know, depending on what veggies you use, you may spend a little more time, a little less time. So customize it to your tastes and your desires, but it works for me. This whole process took about 15 minutes, I would say, and because I go through this stuff several meals a day, a good handful of it, I do this about every 3 days or so, but like I said, it's worth it. So try it on your own. Let me know what you think.